Let's start with a very interesting story from one ill-Irish man. You can't leave until everything is done. About 2 years into my previous career, I had gotten tired of working customer service, cashiering, partly because you're constantly being watched and other departments hate on you because you don't know how tough my department is. You have it so easy up here. Physically, yes. Mentally, emotionally, working all random shifts, he's dealing with Karens, knowing item codes, knowing and enforcing company policy, etc. Big no. So there's an opening in the produce department and I jump on it. Being based on seniority, I easily get the job. At first, things are pretty straightforward. I get trained to be the opener of the department. Other than having to be to work at 4 a.m., stack bins of watermelons outside in 100-plus degree heat, and constantly having to lift 50-pound boxes of various awkwardly shaped vegetable boxes, the concepts aren't difficult. Keep the product full and appealing, and don't forget to rotate. Then, things begin to change. Corporate is tightening the labor budget because sales aren't where they want them. Labor is getting tighter and tighter each week. Naturally, as labor declines, we can't get stock out fast enough, or we run out of time to order sufficiently and sales dip. Round and round it goes. After a while, we go from having a manager, full opener, a mid-shift, between 4 to 8 hours depending on time of the month, sometimes a second half shift, usually a rookie or someone from a different dep to help out, and a full closer, 28 to 36 labor hours per day, to having a manager and 2 full closers, 24 labor hours per day, every day, no matter how busy or slow. On top of that, the manager doesn't touch much of the product because they come in early in the morning, and when we leave for the night, everything has to be full. Now, this makes very little sense to me because that means all the fresh product sits out all night. Some is refrigerated, watered. So we have to pull things like strawberries that are extremely perishable just for her, the manager, to put them back out in the morning. This is a big warehouse-type store that's infamous for its great produce quality. Not Costco or Sam's Club big, but same idea. As time goes on, we fall more and more behind. We are struggling to keep up. Now she is irate because things are not as full as they used to be. You can't leave until everything is finished, she told us. Every night all the displays must be full, the load has to be broken down. We get 6 to 12 pallets of fresh product daily. The back room has to be swept, all the product in the back room condensed, and any extra cleaning or other duties she's assigned that day. Oh, and she loads up all the 6-wheelers we use to bring out product with stuff we don't need because she never leaves the back room before we get there, so we start out behind. Months of this. I'm racking up so much overtime, it's not funny. I'm talking average of 1 to 2 hours OT per day, 5 days a week. Same for my partner. We almost always work side by side, shift-wise, not literally, but he makes more, and they don't like how expensive he is. The only bright side for me is my partner has seniority by about 15 years, so she blames him for everything. However, she won't tell me directly if I'm doing anything wrong. She'll leave a nasty note for me to find later before she leaves for the day, but that's it. Any sane person would realize this is not possible to do by ourselves. Doesn't matter. The day after we both put in 11-hour shifts, she scolds us on how could the two of us put in 22 hours combined and still not get everything done? We explain everything we had to do, but it falls on deaf ears, and I'm starting to become checked out mentally. So she tells us, you have to leave on time. So, every night, we're faced with a choice. Do we stay and actually finish, or do we leave on time? Doesn't matter. We can't win. If we leave on time, we didn't get everything done. A couple times a supervisor, her boss, came in and saw things not full, and she got in trouble. But if we stay, that's overtime, and we all know how triggering that is to management. Eventually, I'm expecting my first kid, so I get a second job that complements this one in industry and allows me to service 24-hour locations, meaning I can do it immediately after my shift ends, or after a power nap in the car. I'm pretty exhausted and losing patience after a few more months of this. Backroom produce coolers are awesome places to vent, cool off, BTDW. But as I said in my last post, I love a challenge. Careful what you wish for. The results. Eventually, we get a new store manager. While this didn't improve corporate policy, this guy turns out to be the best manager the company had ever seen. literally won Manager of the Year and got promoted to District Supervisor. He fights corporate on their labor policy and proves that the store is more profitable when he spends more labor to make it more appealing and offer superior customer service. The produce manager got forced to transfer stores because my partner had complained to the union about her unreasonable demands and targeting him with harassment since she always blamed him. He was also Mexican, legal in case you were wondering, and over 40, so 2 legally protected classes. Years later, I was visiting her new store on a training assignment, and she had also been demoted to customer service. Oh, the irony, where I believe she still is today. Once my kid is born, the new store manager lets me take all my paid time off. And we all lived happily ever after, almost. I did get promoted in the customer service department a few months later, but that only led to more stories for another day. I think this may be something of a double malicious compliance, but it's a no-win because you can't comply with both. This is probably the most satisfying ending to all my stories. IMO. TL. Dr. Manager tells us we can't leave until everything is done, then gets mad when it requires overtime. Manager tells us to leave on time. Impossible to comply with both. Manager gets transferred, then demoted for harassment. Don't stop painting the mural? Sure thing, boss. This malicious was perfect, and it was executed flawlessly. Trapped between 2 impossible demands, the manager's hypocrisy exposed itself. By strictly following her contradictory orders, she sealed her own downfall. Justice was poetic, with her demotion making it the perfect workplace karma. The next story from Saga Nuts 18. For the last 3 years, I have worked as a muralist for a mural company. It's hard work, but also rewarding, as I was beautifying public spaces. I had a good boss. He was a skilled painter who worked alongside us on big projects, in addition to providing us with plenty of financial incentives and encouragements. Unfortunately, he retired last year and gave full control of the company to his business partner. It immediately became a sideshow. The business partner controlled the administration side of the company. He was not a painter and didn't understand the work it took. He would overbook clients and overpromise on completion dates. He never offered us incentives and would only berate us for not getting jobs done quickly enough. We tried to tell him that the old boss has always encouraged us to take our time and deliver the best mural, as the company's reputation rested on the quality of our work. We also tried to explain that as artists, we want to be proud of the work that we put out there. He brushed it off with, "You're paid to finish jobs. Just get it done." This was incredibly demoralizing, and after 2 months of churning out rushed work, we were burned out. One of our 4 muralists quit. The final straw came 3 months later. Our company won a huge bid to paint the side of a 5 stories tall building using my design. I told the boss that it would take us 5 weeks to complete. However, a week before the project was due to start, he told us that we had 3 weeks. We protested, citing that we're down 1 muralist, safety issues, weather changes, and the complexity of the design. He, of course, told us that the contract has been signed and brushed off our concerns. He did, however, offer us financial incentives for overtime work this time, and knowing that there was nothing we could do, we accepted it. I simplified the design and we planned to stay late. The weather got bad as predicted. There were a few days of rain where we barely got work done. We fell behind and told the boss that he had to get us an extension. Our client was nice enough to grant another week, but our boss was pissed. He would show up to the job site regularly just to rush us. On the 3rd week, we were working when a light drizzle started. We were waiting in our cars, hoping that it would pass when the boss showed up. The moment he saw us, he started accusing us of being lazy. To quote, "This is why we're falling behind." One of my coworkers said through gritted teeth, "Can't you see it's raining?" But before we could explain why we couldn't paint in the rain, the boss yelled, "If you're scared of a little drizzle, you shouldn't be a muralist. Get back to work." My coworker shot me a look, and I knew immediately. The malicious compliance was on. The 3 of us got back on the scaffolding and began working. The boss smugly said, "See, that wasn't so hard," and drove off. We kept our smiles to ourselves. When the boss returned that afternoon, he was horrified. The rain had washed the wet paint down the building, leaving paint streaks dripping onto the rest of the mural. Basically, the whole mural, 3 weeks' worth of work, was ruined. We noticed him staring slack-jawed, but we just kept painting. Then he called us down and cursed us out with all sorts of profanity. When asked, "What the fuck were you guys thinking?" my coworker replied, "Well, you were the one who told us to do it." My boss's face turned beet red. Then he asked, "Well, how the hell are we going to fix this?" My coworker simply replied, "You mean how you are going to fix it? We've decided to all quit." And indeed we had while we were working in that rain. We packed up our tools as the boss went from yelling to begging to yell again. We just ignored him. That was the last day that we were on site. I felt so relieved the moment I got home. The aftermath. I got a call a week later from my old boss. I was ready to tell him that I won't come back to work, but it turned out that he just wanted to check in on me. He apologized for what happened. He also told me that my new boss lost the contract and had to fork out the money to repaint the whole wall blank again so that another muralist can take over. The company is floundering now. The new boss can't find anyone to replace us, and he probably never will. What he didn't realize was that finding even one good muralist willing to work for a company is difficult, let alone a team. Most muralists are more than happy to self-employ. More importantly, not many people have the skills and patience, as well as physical abilities, to create beautiful, large-scale artworks from great heights. I give it another few months before the company completely shuts down. My coworkers and I still keep in touch. They got a few mural projects in the work from clients that they knew during their time with the company. I help out now and then, but I'm still pretty burnt from the experience, so I think I'll look for other jobs for now. The malicious compliance was flawless. By obeying the boss's reckless demand to paint in the rain, the team ensured maximum damage, proving their point spectacularly. His arrogance backfired, costing him the contract and his company's future. Really, a poetic and well-deserved downfall. The next story from NyGibbs. Tenant asking landlord, me, to be more professional. I am a small-time landlord with just 4 tenants. Earlier this year, I had 2 sisters that didn't respond to my requests to add of the gal's husband to the lease, though he was living with them. Not a big deal. But did I mention the pit bull they also brought home without permission? I do allow pets and had previously approved their other dog. I asked nicely in person and by email in the months leading up to the malicious compliance. They also did not respond when I asked if they were happy there and wanted to renew their lease for the following year. I asked again, then I emailed them. Notice that I would start showing the unit 2 days later. I try to be a nice landlord. I do. They had a newborn as well, so I scheduled all of the showings within a 2-hour window on the same night so I could be in their space as little as possible. Also, because they had not responded and it was now serious crunch time for getting another tenant and my spouse worked all the following 2 weeks during evening showing hours, I had the delightful inconvenience of bringing my 2- and 6-year-old children with me to the showings. Because I'm not a corporation, I'm a small-time family landlord with kids. Try to imagine how difficult it is to conduct business meetings with 2 kids, right? Then imagine staggering showings every 15 minutes with prospective tenants who are also bringing their own kids. Just to further clutter your imagination, this is an 800-square-foot, 2-bedroom apartment with a cozy entryway. So I arrive with my 2 kids to find that my tenants are still at home, along with the husband, the newborn, and the other sister's boyfriend. So that's 7 people in a small kitchen already. Then the first prospective tenants start arriving, husbands, wives with kids, and some showing up early, so there are 2 sets of them. That's 14 people in a small kitchen. And I'm a mom. I have magical powers. So I'm holding my toddler, my daughter is safely under the dining table coloring, and I'm chatting with the prospective tenants and directing traffic while my actual tenants prepare to depart. If you didn't know this already, it's common practice in the U.S. to leave the premises during real estate or apartment showings. This was their first apartment, so I actually emailed them ahead of time to let them know what is generally expected at showings, e.g. a relatively tidy apartment and that they can leave for their own convenience. They do eventually leave after the boyfriend tells a prospective tenant that he, in fact, also lives there. And I carry on with an exhausting scheduling of showings and have my new tenants all picked out and lease signed by the next day. Awesome, right? The next night, I get a voicemail from the husband, who is not my tenant. I saved it and just listed to it again because it still gives me that same delightful shiver of malicious compliance. In his voicemail, he told me how awful it was that my children touched his infant's things. They didn't, because I keep my kids entertained with magical mommy toys, but prospective tenants also brought children, and how they had to sterilize everything to keep their infant from being sick, and how inconvenient it was to have showings with only 2 days' notice, and how very unprofessional I was to bring my children, and asked if I could just be more professional in the future. You can hear it, can't you? The deep shiver of malicious compliance vibrating through my offended being. The next morning, I started issuing professional lease violation notices, one for the extra residents of the unit, hubby and boyfriend, one for the extra dog, and a few additional ones for building concerns I noted during the showings. They ignored the violation notice, which I sent by certified mail and thoughtfully also by email. I decided to be even more professional 30 days later and issue a 5-day notice to vacate. And I called their mom, who is their emergency contact, as an eviction notice is an emergency. Did I mention that their lease was due to end just a few weeks later? But it would be unprofessional of me to let these violations slide until then. 3 days later, they'd magically sent me all the information I'd requested, removed the other dog, licensed the first dog, gotten the required pet insurance. They moved out on their lease termination date, and skipped out on their last electric bill, and left the unit in damaged condition. Despite my professional security deposit disposition statement and request for payment, they ignored those notices until I stated I would proceed to small claims court by X date for the total due beyond their security deposit. On X date, they replied stating they didn't think it was fair that they should have to cover damages to the unit or pay any more money toward their utility bill. Yep. 2 months later, there we were in the lobby of the courthouse, sitting across from each other on uncomfortable waiting room benches. They're laughing among themselves about how they're going to get their full security deposit back, and I'm quietly reviewing my presentation notes to the judge and my sizable stack of evidence, photographs, videos. This was my first time in court, but I wasn't laughing. I was preparing. 1 hour later, we're back in the lobby, and their mom is trying to write me a check for the full amount of the judgment. She doesn't have a pen. Her kids don't have a pen. I, however, have a pen. I cheerfully offer my pen. She writes the check and hands it to me, and wait. I hold out my hand again. Got my pen back, too. I was so proud of myself for not saying any of the sassy things in my head in that moment. You know why? Because I was being professional, as I'd been from the moment he'd left that voicemail. As a last note, I do acknowledge that it would have been better if I hadn't brought my children. However, if you have kids, you'll understand that sometimes they simply have to go where you go. The malicious compliance was flawless, professional, and calculated. By following every rule to the letter, the landlord turned the tenant's own demands against them. The cherry on top? Winning in court while maintaining absolute professionalism. A masterclass in landlord justice.